Batman, One Dark Knight, issue 1, JOCK. Just JOCK.
It's unusual to see, isn't it?
That's what they should just put on the cover, just JOCK. It sounds good. I mean, obviously it's not really, he's not doing the lettering or anything, but like still, just JOCK.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously we knew that this was about a blackout in Gotham City one night, and it was all set in the one night. So that premise alone's enough for me with JOCK art. Turns out that we build up to the blackout happening at the end of the issue in this, and it's it's a long issue. It's one of these prestige books. It's 50 pages, and we're introduced to what I believe is a new villain that's created for this book, EMP, who's of course his real name also has the initials EMP, which like maybe to your taste, well,
Probably how it was called.
Yeah, whether you love or hate that, but that still made more sense to me than say like Edward Enigma, which is too on the nose because the name actually means something. At least you know.
That's when you start to get to fate of it. Was he always fated to be Riddler?
Yeah.
Because he's,
well, they changed it eventually, didn't they, to him having like a birth name that was different, and he changed it because he wanted the pun, which okay. Right. You're filling in your plot hole a little bit there, which is nice. I quite dug this. I don't know how everyone else feels. I have no idea. Matt, how do you feel about it?
This is the one that I started reading. I was like, I don't care. It's JOCK on art, which great, but just reading it, I was like, I don't have the bandwidth for this right now.
That is shocking to me, but okay.
I know.
I get it. I thought it was fine. I think the art's gorgeous. Yeah. It's as expected.
Yeah,
the story is fine. It's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't grab me. But I will say, I think JOCK isn't a terrible writer, because this is the first time I think he's really written his own projects.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he ends his book about a few pages too late. There's like 3 or 4 pages extra at the end of this issue that just shouldn't be there.
Sure. I'll look at them when we get there and tell you if I agree with that.
But yeah, so as I was reading this, I was like, man, I'm sure Pete's gonna love it. It's Batman, or it's JOCK doing Batman, which But I was like, I need more than just JOCK doing Batman.
I do think the first handful of pages was the weakest. It took me a few attempts to get.
Yeah.
I kept I'd read like 2 pages, and then I'd be like, I'm going to stop and go, I'm going to have a drink, or I'll glance at my phone or something. And I don't usually do that with comics, but it took me probably about the first 10 pages to actually get to a point where I could sit and read it in one go.
Let me bust in here then and give some positivity. Because I kind of love this issue. There's a lot of things about this that I really liked. I love the one night setting. I love the way it builds up the mood around the city, and that the gang's all gearing up for something. Arkham's gearing up for this transport, because the plot of the book is that they're transporting this villain, EMP, who sucks in energy from around him, absorbs it. They're transporting him to Blackgate, and it's all under this, was it Vasquez, the head of the prison system or something, and she's speaking at a thing where Gordon's also at, and all these things are happening around the city, and it's sort of setting all this stuff up, and they're transporting him in like a Faraday truck, which looks kind of like, it's like one of those buggies you get when like they're riding around on the moon, but it's like the size of a monster truck. That's what it looks like to me.
Faraday cage in science is like it's one of those no electrical impulses can come in or go out.
Oh yeah, I know what a Faraday cage. I'm just talking about what this truck looks like.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so I liked all this build up, but what I really loved, because ultimately what happens here is you get the a gang intervenes, hits the truck with a rocket, and Batman, who's monitoring the situation the whole time, has to swoop in and try and intervene. What I loved here is that you get a map of Gotham right early on in the book. It shows you a map of Gotham. It shows you the route they're going to take. It labels all the sections of the city. And I thought, that's neat. And I didn't think too much of it. I just thought it was neat. And it was sort of showing you the various chatter from different locations. Like, so Blackgate saying, hey, we've got our super advanced Faraday cage ready. And someone else is saying this, blah, blah. Later on the issue, once everything's gone down and we're wrapping up towards the end of the book, and it becomes clear that the truck is immobilized, Batman's had to save EMP, knock him out, and take him from the gangs that are coming for him. And it's like, wait, the plot of this book going forward now is that Batman is going to have to, on foot, cover 2/3 of this journey. And it shows you the map again. And it shows you where the truck was hit, and it shows you where all the gangs are en route to try and intervene. and it's basically like the Gauntlet's a movie that has like a kind of a plot like this. 16 Blocks that Richard Donner did with Bruce Willis has kind of got a plot like this. So it's a very simple action movie plot, in that the power goes out, and Batman is on his own with basically no contacts at this point because he can't talk to Alfred because everything electricals went down. And not only that, apparently EMP releases like people start to like get riled up. Like it releases energy that hits people, and it's starting to affect the city. So they're going to get the city itself is going to get crazier as the night goes on because he's out in the open. So you've got all this, and the art, of course, is gorgeous. There's like two similar 2-page spreads towards the end, where one's where like he does sort of detonate like an EMP grenade when he hits the bat signal, because he's in like the neon part of the city, and he's like sucking in all this energy, and then he falls into the bat signal, and that's when it goes boom. And then there's the exact same sort of page looking at the city. It's just completely black, with just the vague shapes of the buildings.
That's the page I think should have been the final page of the book.
Again,
it's that blackout. It's like finally that's blackout, and then there's like 3 or 4 pages after of Batman just doing a little bit of stuff, like getting up, and I'm like, that should have been the start of your next issue.
I actually think I disagree. I didn't go and see them specifically, but I think you're talking about the pages that set up the trip that he has to make now, and I think that's just the hook of the book. I think the hook of the book and the thing that you're setting up in this issue is this dangerous journey he's going to have to make on his own to get to point B. Like I think that is important.
I disagree, because we already know he's on this journey. That's the whole point of this journey. Is like you said, it shows us that map multiple times. This, this. Okay, yeah, this is the journey of the book.
Isn't that second map after that page?
It might be, but the first map that we see anyway. But
I think the second map's the important part. I think that's the part you need before the end of this issue, because that's the part that says this is how dangerous it is. This is all the ground he has to cover, and this is all the obstacles that are going to be in his way. That's what made me excited to read issue 2. So
I think that page could have been before the blackout. Like, I think we could have seen that earlier then.
No, I completely disagree. I 100% disagree with Connor on this. I think the setup for what this plot actually is after the blackout is the most important thing, and I think it is necessary as the ending of this book. I couldn't disagree more with that.
I think for me, ending with the big explosion, that double page, a couple of pages there that you've got of people looking around. Like this is where I think you could have moved a couple of those pages, like the map, like Batman. You could have had just a page of that, him looking there. But I think that double page of just an ending on the double page of the blackout, where it actually says, whatever the line continues from before, and it just says blackout on it. I think that should absolutely have been the final page of the book.
It's okay. You're allowed to be wrong. You've done it before, and you'll do so many times again, and that's fine. I think this call to action with him picking him up and walking off at the end is exactly where this book needs to end. So I would full support of Just Jock.
Just Jock.
Also, Jock showing his Britishness when he was naming the areas of Gotham. Because 2 stuck out to me. One, that Burnley is an area of Gotham now, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was just on the map. I don't think we went to that one. But the one that really stuck out to me is because there was a panel and it had the location, and it was Coventry, which was weird because that's my hometown. I was like, wait, what?
I mean, it's not uncommon for places in the US to be named after UK places.
No, but I've never heard those names in relation to Gotham before. So I'm saying Jock is
true. There's a few that I do recognise though. You got the Bowery, you got I
was looking for the Narrows and I didn't see it.
That one's not there. Nah, there was no Narrows.
No, they've got like a Broadway. They've got Old Gotham, a Chinatown, Upper East Side.
Right.
All these things those make sense to me in Gotham, and it's not that these places they can't be called Burnley or Coventry. It's just they've never happened before, to my knowledge, and it felt like Jock was just throwing in places that he knows that maybe a lot of Americans won't.
And that's fine. I mean, it's not like this map is exactly canon. You know what I mean? No. But I was looking at where Wayne Tower was and where Crime Alley is, and those are very, very far away. And it just makes me wonder if that was the only theater that was showing Zorro in Gotham, and why they were so far out of the way in Crime Alley.
Whoa. Wayne Tower's not where they live, though. So why was that going to do?
No, I know, but you'd assume Wayne Tower's kind of where Thomas would do business, right? Like, Wayne Towers is by where the hospital.
Sure, but the mansion's outside the city, so maybe the mansion's on, the other side.
Maybe, but I just noticed that like they were very, very on JOCK's map, very far away, and it was just like, as someone that was looking to go see Licorice Pizza this weekend, and it's not showing except for 35 minutes away, I just got to thinking, like how was this the only theater playing Zorro?
Yeah, no,
the further away we get from the release, I mean, it not being contemporary for when they were playing it, it was like, oh no, it's just somewhere playing this movie. The more likely it becomes that it can be further away from wherever.
That's true. It's an old movie.
True.
Yeah, no, that makes some sense. But I think what's great in this book is the pacing and the way it really feels like everything's coalescing. Because eventually Gordon and the Vasquez lady find out that the truck's been hit, and they start moving towards the crime scene and try to get on top of things. The various people that Batman and EMP pass as Batman's chasing them, and it's kind of this ticking time bomb element, both to EMP, but there's also an overall ticking time bomb element to the whole story because, and this was kind of silly, they should have maybe waited to turn it on, but it turns out that this fancy thing that they've built at Blackgate to contain his power, it's designed on a perpetuating cycle that's fed by EMP himself. So now that they've turned it on, if they don't get him in there within X amount of time, it's not so much that it'll blow up necessarily, but it'll just it'll break down and it won't work anymore, and it'll be all for nothing. So there's a bit of a ticking time clock on that as well. So
I'm assuming just for the sake of playing devil's advocate, the reason that they turned it on before he got there was it needed time to charge up and turn on and cycle on to be ready when he got there.
But I would say that if it's safe enough to have him transporting throughout the city, that whatever you're using to keep him on the down low in that time, you can do it for an extra 10 minutes, so that they're more sure that he's going to be going in there.
That's fair.
Just if it's
now looking at this second map and seeing all the different names of the gangs.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting Warrior vibes. I'm like, God, I'm gonna have to find time because I didn't even think about the Warriors being a kind of vibe.
Oh yeah,
either.
And because you get this vibe as well that the gangs that are not on each other's side, they're all coming for their own reasons.
Right.
So no, I thought the pacing of this was excellent. The build up to EMP going supernova, and then obviously it's just a thematic thing that he happens to fall into the bat signal rather than it being important, but it is kind of a nice visual of it all happening. But there's great panels of the gang shooting rocket launchers to try and get him. The coloring is it's all these dark colors, but then you have the bright flames and the lights and all that stuff. The flash, especially when the flash goes off, when the big EMP explosion happens, there's a panel on the next page of the police car with Gordon and Vasquez in it, and it just sort of is bright light. It's almost to the point where I almost wasn't sure if that's all it was. Is something even more supernatural happen, or not supernatural, but science fiction happening here with this blast. But the way it then transitions to the panels of them on the same page inside the car, and they're just in complete darkness, it really sold the idea that no, every light in the city just went out. This isn't just the buildings, this is the cars, this is everything possible. It is just ambient moonlight that is now lighting the city. So it really set this tone and mood. But is it? This is like the perfect action movie version of Batman, in which it's just a really simple premise: point A, point B. It has to get there, and you've got all the various parts of the city that are going to play into it as he's going. So, and I kind of get for the premise sake why it had to be an original villain that he came up with, and that's cool. I have no problem with that. And to be honest, the way it builds up to him with them all mentioning how dangerous he is and that we have to move him, and the drivers of the truck being nervous that they have to do this, it actually did a really good job of building him up as being a really big deal. He felt halfway through the book, he felt like any, I won't say A-list villain, but he felt like any villain that's ever been given a serious amount of storytelling to, that is supposed to feel like a big deal,
I never personally quite got that. It was always just, he's there for the plot for me.
They put him over, to use a wrestling term, and I got that.
He's a low mid-carder that suddenly is in the main event, and you're like, oh, okay.
Sure, yeah, sure. But I got that from this, but it's all about the geography, which is why I think leaning on the map and like really showing off this is a really good idea. Because any good action movie is kind of about geography, and I don't mean on a large scale. I mean on the sense of, even if you're just having a fight scene, like always kind of understanding where the two people in the fight are in relation to each other is super important, and it's what separates a good action scene from a bad action scene. And then on a slightly larger scale, you have the city, which is like, you know, this is the dangerous journey we have to go through, and yeah, so yeah, this was like my John Carpenter Batman movie, like put on page, that like I always wanted someday. So yes, the apathy from Connor is I don't want to say
I don't think it's bad. I think it's perfectly fine written with very, very, very good art. It's coming across really negative because you're like, this is amazing, you loved it. I'm like,
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I figured he would like this just because I know Pete's taste when it comes to Jock and Batman. Like, so, you know.
But to his credit though, I don't think this is just on the art though. I think the writing's perfectly good. To really good in places. I don't think it's overwritten. I think it's paced very well. I think it builds the characters. The new characters of both the villain and this Vasquez lady are done fairly well. I think the pacing's excellent, which is on the writing and not just the art. Like, but I was very impressed with this, and I am very excited for issue 2.
I'll tell you what in terms of the art, the biggest surprise for me was at one point, because like the first like bulk of it is Batman's, a lot of it in the shadows. It's typical dark Jock, right? And there's a point where he jumps out in the light, and you see how bright his costume is. He's got like a full. Like it's the grey costume, but with the blue, you know, the cowl gloves, cape, and boots with the bright yellow under the cape. And I hadn't realised it was quite that until that page. I was like, oh, that's the costume he's gone with. I because it was in the shadow so much, I just assumed Jock had chosen a darker costume.
Yeah, even the cover, he's just in silhouette, or you know.
Right. And again, not complaint. That was just something I noticed as I was reading that caught me by surprise. But no, it was fine.
I give this a hearty recommendation to everyone. All right, well, what are you giving it then?
I'll give it a 7. Yeah, it's perfectly good with the art.
I was waiting for him to give it a 4 or something just to watch your brain melt.
At no point did I say this was a bad thing. I've repeatedly said the writing is fine, the art is fantastic.
But there's a tone in your voice that I just don't like. There's a tone.
You're pinning your identity a little bit on this book, and I don't appreciate it.
There's a tone. Easy 9 out of 10 for me. Loved it. Can't wait for issue 2. I encourage Matt to give it another go and get into the nitty gritty of it, because I think you might like the action stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.